One with a flash of the sword light, Xiao Yan turned into core qi and disappeared. Shui Man was stunned for a second before he regained his senses. With a flip of his body, he came to Meng Zhou's side and looked around coldly. "You think you can escape with just the transformation pill?" Meng Zhou chuckled. The transformation pill was one of the most popular capital of chaos in Capital of Chaos. It had an incomparable effect on preserving one's life. But in the end, it was only a third-grade medicine pill, so it naturally had its shortcomings. "He's still nearby. If I'm not mistaken, he must have cultivated the method of concealment." Meng Zhou's eyes flickered. He swiftly analyzed the situation. After which, he looked at his surroundings and laughed in disdain. "Since he isn't coming out, then let's destroy this place. Let's see where he can escape to." As he spoke, he had already soared into the sky. Starlight flickered on his hands as a sharp aura surged and rumbled. "Kai!" Shui Man's expression suddenly changed. His eyes looked in a certain direction in the distance, whether intentionally or not, before he let out a cold laugh. Sure enough, this guy couldn't hold it any longer. "Go to hell!" With a soft whisper, Shui Man charged forward. Like the flickering of stars, he instantly saw a black shadow flashing rapidly in front of him. With a cold snort, his feet stomped on the ground. A crack instantly spread out and rushed towards the black shadow in the distance with lightning speed. In the blink of an eye, it had already caught up to him. The crack suddenly transformed into a ferocious stab. It directly passed through the black figure's body. Puff! The black shadow trembled slightly, then transformed into core qi and dissipated once again. Another incarnation pill? Shui Man's gaze paused. He was a little angry. He looked at Meng Zhou, who was ready to attack in the air, and said, "Let's blow this place up and see where he can run to." Before he finished his words, Shui Man felt a chill run down his spine. He instinctively turned around, and in his eyes, a cold and indifferent Xiao Yan appeared. The latter punched out with his big fist, and with a fierce wind, he aimed at Shui Man's head. "Good job!" Recovering from his momentary daze, Shui Man could not help but be delighted. He extended his palm like lightning and easily grabbed Xiao Yan's wrist. His empty other hand also suddenly struck out, directly smashing towards Xiao Yan's head. Captured? In the sky, Meng Zhou's eyes were incomparably sharp. When he saw that Xiao Yan was easily trapped by Shui Man, he couldn't help but be stunned. His hand movements also slowed down. Hong! Just as Shui Man's fist was about to hit Xiao Yan's head, a dull sound of impact suddenly came from the air behind him. Then, he heard Meng Zhou let out a miserable cry, and his body rapidly fell down. "Damn it, it's another incarnation pill." Shui Man's expression was cold. He blasted Xiao Yan, who was standing in front of him, with a punch. He turned his body and flew towards the sky. At that spot, Xiao Yan's true body had silently appeared. The Sky Spill Fist ruthlessly smashed down on Meng Zhou. "Very good. Your qi has been locked down. Now, let's see where you can run to." Shui Man soared into the sky and stood in front of Xiao Yan. He laughed coldly. Behind him, Meng Zhou, who had calmed down, also slowly rose into the air, blocking the latter's path of retreat. His eyes flickered with a frightening light as he looked at Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan's expression did not change. He looked at Shui Man in front of him. The star power on the latter's body surged. It seemed as if it was going to split the space. It was unusually sharp. Star energy. Extreme star group, so that's how it is. Xiao Yan pursed his lips. Suddenly, he understood what was going on. A trace of excitement flashed across his eyes, and he began to have a slight interest in these two men. He was cultivating the Starlight Silent Step, and what he lacked was the star power. If he could absorb these two men's star power for his own use, then even if he couldn't fully master the Starlight Silent Step, he would still be able to do it much faster than he was now. You can still smile when you're about to die. Shui Man was slightly startled when he saw this. Then, he flew into a rage out of humiliation, thinking that Xiao Yan was teasing them before he mocked them. Myriad Star Falling Spirit. Without saying another word, Meng Zhou had already unleashed one of the most powerful killing techniques of the Extreme Star Group. As one of the 10 most outstanding guardians of the Extreme Star Group, they were naturally able to learn the most powerful cultivation technique of the Extreme Star Group. In an instant, the sky suddenly changed. The day turned into night in the blink of an eye. Stars filled the sky, shining brightly. Under Meng Zhou's hands, Countless stars whistled down like peerless sharp blades, roaring and bombarding Xiao Yan. They all had the strength to kill any emperor. It was incomparably ferocious. Astral Great Destruction Palm. On the other side, Shui Man surged around Shui Man's body. In an instant, they gathered behind him. A huge star hand that could cover the sky was formed. It was vivid and lifelike. It carried an evil aura that could suppress all ages as it smashed towards Xiao Yan without any hesitation. Both of these attacks had reached the level of a low-level monarch arts. They were both one of the strongest ultimate techniques of the Extreme Star Group. It was unleashed by Meng Zhou and Shui Man with a majestic aura. They had the power to fight an emperor cultivation warrior. Xiao Yan was in the middle of the battle. When he sensed the surging star power from all directions, he furrowed his brows slightly. In the next moment, the crimson gold flame covered his entire body. Boundless origin qis surged out continuously and formed an indestructible origin qi armor around his body. If he used the Black Tortoise Dragon armor spell, he was confident that he could withstand Shui Man and Meng Zhou's attacks. However, the consumption of origin monarch qis for the Black Tortoise Dragon armor spell was too huge. Although this level of attack was fierce, it was far from reaching the stage where he could use the Black Tortoise Dragon armor spell. As expected, you have two types of monarch flames. A hint of jealousy surged into Meng Zhou's eyes. After Black Nether Emperor made a trip to the Yunluo Academy, he found out that Black Nether Emperor had two types of Yunluo academies. For some reason, he had a clear understanding of Xiao Yan's situation. Naturally, they also knew that Xiao Yan had two kinds of monarch flames in his possession. After being stimulated by the monarch flame, the origin qi in their bodies didn't even leave a single mark. It gushed out crazily, and in an instant, their attacks became several times stronger than before. Xiao Yan's brows stood up. The surrounding flames burned furiously. He could sense that Shui Man and Meng Zhou had used nearly half of the Meng Zhous within their bodies under the temptation of the monarch flame. This level of attack was no longer below that of an ordinary emperor cultivation. Monarch Flame Secret Skill, Wheel Flame Dao. Heavenly Monarch Fire Burning Body. Xiao Yan did not dare to lower his guard when he sensed this. As the flames raged, he had already used both secret techniques. His strength rose steadily like a rocket, and in an instant, he had reached the peak of Monarch Emperor. Ever since he absorbed refining Monarch Hai Tianyan, Xiao Yan's control over the Monarch Flame had become more adept, and he was able to use the Heavenly Monarch Fire-burning body even more freely. Let's try this move. Xiao Yan's eyes sparkled, and he suddenly grinned. The origin qis in his body roared and gathered. A continuous stream of origin monarch qis gushed out from the top of his skull, turning into black qi that filled the sky. Within the black gas, there was a strange golden light flowing. In the next moment, the black qi that filled the sky covered the sky. In the middle of the black gas, a huge golden door rolled out from within. The huge door was engraved with obscure words that were difficult to describe, just like the ancient devil language. It made people's hearts tremble, as if they had been freed from the depths of the Nine Abyss. It was filled with a murderous aura that shook the heavens and the earth. Great Yin Burial Technique. Xiao Yan's face was expressionless. The origin qi in his body was flowing out crazily. The huge golden door in the black qi was like a bottomless pit, absorbing the origin monarch qi in Xiao Yan's body. The origin chains roared, and a huge origin qi flew out, causing the golden door to become even more stable. The door to the grave could bury all things. Countless sharp starlight blades were covered by a huge palm, pressing down on Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan, on the other hand, was calm and composed. Behind him, a huge golden door slowly opened, and black qi gushed out from it. It was as if a brand new world had been opened, and the boundless suction force had increased dramatically. Under Shui Man and Meng Zhou's astonished gazes, the starlight blade and the star palm. They couldn't help but rush into the Yin burial gate. One green waves rolled in the vast sea of trees like endless waves. Above the sea of trees, endless black qi filled the air. Within the black qi, a golden door that seemed to illuminate the ages slowly opened. In an instant, the starlight that covered the entire Jade Palace could not help but surge into the door. What is this? Seeing that their ultimate skill was swallowed by the huge door, Shui Man and Meng Zhou were shocked. The former's eyebrows were raised in anger, and he kept roaring furiously. He exerted all his strength, but the huge palm formed by the stars was still out of his control. "Break for me!" Meng Zhou's eyes turned red. He saw that all of his attacks were directed at the giant golden door behind Xiao Yan. While feeling furious in his heart, he let out a loud shout. His 5 fingers suddenly clenched, and the sound of bones cracking could be heard. His expression was ferocious. There seemed to be a cluster of raging flames burning between his brows. At this moment, all the strength in his body had gathered on his 5 fingers. Boom! In the next moment, the star blades that looked like a heavy rain howled. Just as they were about to enter the huge golden door, they turned into stars that filled the sky and dissipated with a loud bang, bombarding the huge golden door. Woo! Xiao Yan felt a sweetness in his throat. He forcefully swallowed the blood that had rushed to his mouth. At the moment when the huge golden door was struck, he felt as if he had suffered a heavy blow, and his entire body trembled. His sharp eyes looked at the golden door behind him. Although it was on the verge of collapse after being struck by Meng Zhou's final attack, it had still successfully swallowed Shui Man's star-extinguishing palm. Hong Long, the huge golden door let out a trembling sound. Traces of marks could be seen all over the huge door. The black qi that permeated the air was whimpering, as if it was going to disappear at any time. Xiao Yan took a deep breath. His heart moved freely. As the black qi surged, the huge golden door slowly disappeared. This world had once again regained its clarity. Although there were some mistakes in the process, it had successfully blocked the attacks of the 2 of them and achieved the desired effect. Thinking of this, Xiao Yan couldn't help but sigh slightly. When Jade Fairy used this move, she had blocked the strongest attack of the Emperor cultivation level Yin Zhuxuan, the Dark Soul. But now, the power of the Great Yin Burial Technique wasn't even 10% as powerful as the former. A strange technique. Meng Zhou panted heavily as he stared at Xiao Yan. With a flip of his palm, a red medicine pill was swallowed by him. The number of Origin Monarch Qis consumed during the earlier action had far exceeded his imagination. Shui Man, don't delay any longer. Use the sword formation and completely kill him. Meng Zhou gritted his teeth and shouted. With a flip of his wrist, a transparent longsword appeared in his hand. Although he looked like he was sneering at Xiao Yan for winning the first place in the 4 academies competition, he was still afraid of Xiao Yan. The Kangs were not as useless as the Xiao clan, where the sun was setting. There were hundreds of thousands of talented descendants. Kang Feng, on the other hand, was among the best in the Kangs, so his strength must not be weak. In fact, he wouldn't be weaker than them. Since this guy in front of them could defeat Kang Feng. If they were not careful, the 2 of them might die here. All right. Although Shui Man did not think as far ahead as Meng Zhou, he realized that the man in front of him was not simple. Immediately, he let out a long roar and held his long sword in his hand. Sword lights surged and cut through the void. Streaks of visible stars appeared in the air. Buzz. The moment the traces of stars appeared, the entire space was immediately filled with a ferocious sword intent. It was like numerous deadly blades, and the sword qi was sweeping across, causing people's skin to hurt. Xiao Yan's heart skipped a beat. The sword formation used by these 2 men was faintly visible. Hong Long. Just as Xiao Yan was thinking about how to deal with their sword formation, his heart suddenly moved. He silently looked into the distance. With his powerful soul energy, he could clearly feel a powerful qi rushing towards him from afar. Xiao Yan, hurry up and leave. You are no match for this guy. The Xiao Ao had been in Xiao Yan's body the whole time. His main body was the holy beast, and he could sense this faintly discernible aura in an instant. Immediately, he spoke anxiously. On the other hand, Shui Man and Meng Zhou had placed all their attention on the sword formation. Countless of sword qi swept across the place, as if it had sealed the entire world. Then, they lunged at Xiao Yan. Let's go! A grave expression flashed across Xiao Yan's eyes. He did not hesitate any longer. Flames surged around his body as he clenched his 5 fingers tightly. The blue flame ruler had already appeared in his palm. Sizzle, sizzle. The enormous ruler spread wide and wide, covering Xiao Yan's entire body tightly. Numerous traces of starlight surged over, but there was not the slightest trace left on the blue flame ruler. Star explosion. Meng Zhou sneered. The longsword in his hand suddenly swung down. The blade of the sword vibrated. Countless streams of star sword chi seemed to have a spirit of their own as they strangely surged towards Xiao Yan. This is a good opportunity. The moment Meng Zhou swung the sword down, Xiao Yan's eyes suddenly flashed. The skin on his body was immediately covered with cracks that looked like a cliff. With a flash of his body, he forcefully withstood the attack of several star sword chi and rushed towards the distance. Damn it! Seeing that Xiao Yan had escaped, Shui Man furiously shouted. The long sword in his hand shook, and the sword chi in this area surged forward like a shadow, chasing after Xiao Yan. This attack had consumed almost all of their origin chis, and it had already locked onto Xiao Yan's chi. You have been struck by the Starlight Sword Scar. Even if you have consumed the Incarnation Pill, using the breath-concealing technique will still be useful. Meng Zhou consumed another medicine pill. As one of the 10 great guardians of the Extreme Star Group, whether it was in terms of talent or ability, he was one of the best. However, the lack of the origin chi greatly limited his improvement. Xiao Yan rushed forward at the front. Unknowingly, he had already entered deep into the forest. Behind him, the star sword chi cut through the void and rushed over. Shui Man and Meng Zhou were chasing closely from afar. Although their origin chi had been severely damaged, it was likely that Xiao Yan's origin chi would not be able to hold on for long. Ha 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 ha! While the two of them were chasing closely, a fierce laughter suddenly came from afar. Wherever the sound wave came from, a series of rumbling sounds resounded unceasingly. It was as if a devil had descended from the heavens. Who is it? When they heard this voice, Shui Man and Meng Zhou's facial expression changed. They immediately stopped and looked at each other in dismay. It's Spirit King. This is his demonic sound technique. Meng Zhou pondered for a moment, then he suddenly realized what was going on. With a furious roar, he instantly abandoned Xiao Yan. With a wave of his sword, the star sword chi in front of him was absorbed. He knew very well that he was going to attack from behind. The resentment between the group of spiritual kings and the Extreme Star Group was very deep. Previously, they were here to complete the mission. Initially, he thought that he would leave after handing the mission over. They didn't expect to meet Xiao Yan, and even more so, they didn't expect to alarm the spiritual king. You dare to behave atrociously in the territory of the group of spiritual kings? The moment Meng Zhou roared, a voice was heard. The tone of the voice was filled with incomparable coldness. I would like to see how powerful your Extreme Star Group's astral sword formation is. In the distance, a human figure rushed over with lightning speed. When he saw the condensed astral sword chi in front of him, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. After that, he let out a cold snort and waved his hand. It was as if he had stirred up everything in the world. The huge palm struck out gently, bringing along boundless origin chi of heaven and earth, and struck the astral sword formation that was filled with killing intent. Crack! Crack! It only lasted for a moment, and the star sword chi that was insufferably arrogant earlier had already shattered inch by inch. After that, it turned into starlight that filled the sky and dissipated. At the same time, Shui Man and Meng Zhou's facial expression changed drastically, and they couldn't help but spurt out a mouthful of blood. Two useless things. After shattering the star sword formation with a single palm, a figure gradually appeared in the sky. A cruel and indifferent look was seen in his single eye. He looked at Shui Man and Meng Zhou, who were not far away, and spoke in a cold voice. Where's Xiao Yan? 2 inches, where's Xiao Yan? A rumbling sound echoed in the sky. The Spirit King stood proudly in the sky with his arms crossed. He looked at Shui Man and Meng Zhou as if he was looking at 2 ants. Lord Spirit King is also a famous expert in Capital of Chaos. Could it be that he wants to humiliate himself and attack us? Meng Zhou suppressed the endless fury in his heart and said indifferently. Attack you? Ridiculous. King is a dignified emperor cultivation. Why would he make things difficult for you too? Upon hearing this, the Spirit King laughed loudly. The words he said made Meng Zhou and Shui Man extremely happy. This old man still cared about his face. However, King wants to capture Xiao Yan. You two have to do everything you can to stop him. King can only kill you two along the way. Pausing for a moment, the Spirit King suddenly let out a cold smile and looked at the two of them. It was like a cat toying with a mouse. Upon hearing this, their facial expression changed. They looked at each other without leaving a trace. Both of them could see the fury in each other's eyes. Despite this, they were helpless. The former was an old monster that had been famous in Capital of Chaos for a long time. The two of them alone would not be able to harm him at all. Spirit King, Xiao Yan was personally requested by Lord Black Nether Emperor. We are only doing things for Lord Black Nether Emperor. I hope that Lord Black Nether Emperor can let us go this time. The three of us will capture Xiao Yan together. At that time, the rewards given by Lord Black Nether Emperor will be given to you, Lord Spirit King. Taking a deep breath, Meng Zhou stared at the Spirit King. His voice remained calm, but his body moved slightly. He was ready to escape. I'm almost tempted by what you just said. The Spiritual King couldn't help but laugh when it heard this. It then lowered its arms. The origin chi suddenly burst out from his body and rushed towards Meng Zhou with lightning speed. Before the latter could react, the 5 fingers of the Spirit King had already pierced through Meng Zhou's chest. Fresh blood gurgled out. Meng Zhou widened his eyes unwillingly. He opened his mouth, and the life force in his body began to rapidly flow out from his chest. With his talent, he would definitely be able to accomplish something in the Capital of Chaos in the future. He didn't expect that he would die here today. Dong! Meng Zhou's body fell down from the sky powerlessly. The Spirit King let out a cold snort and looked coldly at Shui Man who was standing beside him. The latter's face had turned deathly pale. When he saw the Spirit King looking at him, he couldn't help but let out a furious roar. His body flashed wildly and he rushed towards the distance like a star. Trying to run? The Spirit King smiled disdainfully. Just as it was about to chase after him, it seemed as if it had sensed something. It suddenly looked down and saw a human figure flashing by. Meng Zhou's corpse, which had fallen earlier, had disappeared without a trace. Xiao Yan? The Soul King's blood boiled as if it had just seen the reward promised by Black Nether Emperor. It let out a loud roar and stopped chasing after the distant Shui Man. Killing Meng Zhou was just a grudge between them. If it could capture Xiao Yan and obtain Black Nether Emperor's recognition, it would be nothing but a dog fart of the Extreme Star Group. At that time, it wouldn't be worth mentioning at all. Hong! His body shot down like a cannonball. In an instant, the Spirit King blasted out nearly 100 palm strikes. Each of the palm strikes whistled down, causing the ground below to cave in. Numerous trees were blasted into pieces. In an instant, a violent wind roared and the ground cracked and mountains collapsed. Let's see where you can run to. In an instant, this forest had already turned into a barren land. The Spirit King lifted its eyes slightly and instantly saw Xiao Yan in the distance. Immediately, it laughed wildly. It waved its large hand and the origin chi in the entire place was waved. In an instant, it transformed into a huge hand. Its 5 fingers were like mountain pillars as they extended downwards. It directly grabbed Xiao Yan, who had soared into the sky, in its palm. Kai! The 5 fingers were suddenly clenched tightly. The Spirit King's expression changed. The excitement between his brows immediately scattered. He clenched his steel teeth tightly and spoke in a ferocious manner. Damn thing! You dare to trick me! Before he finished speaking, the Spirit King had already soared into the sky. A cold glint flashed across his remaining eyes. He looked at the surrounding forest and sneered. His indifferent voice resounded across the sky, Xiao Yan, come out. Those 2 trash from the Extreme Star Group have left. After not seeing any movement in the forest for a long time, the Spirit King's face slightly twitched. His single eye revealed a trace of anger. Since that was the case, he could only force him to come out. In a certain dense forest below, Xiao Yan was quietly hiding on a huge tree. Through the dense branches and leaves, he looked at the Spirit King in the air. Under the double concealment of soul power and concealment technique, the current Xiao Yan seemed to have completely become a lifeless object. After the Spirit King spoke, Xiao Yan's face was expressionless. He silently looked at Meng Zhou's corpse hidden under a huge rock. The reason he risked being discovered and robbed of Meng Zhou's corpse was because of the latter's star power. The star power was the key step in cultivating the Starlight Silent Step. I need to find a way to get rid of this guy. He killed a Monarch Emperor-level protector of the Extreme Star Group with a single strike. At least, he has the strength that far exceeds an ordinary Emperor cultivation. If we are going to fight him, only the Buddha Fury Fire Lotus will be effective. Xiao Yan's thoughts were flying around, and his mind was spinning rapidly. He was trying to think of a way to escape. Xiao Yan, how about I attract his attention and you take the opportunity to escape? Just as Xiao Yan was deep in thought, the Xiaoao suddenly let out a sound from his body. His strength had mostly recovered, and he had the ability to fight ordinary Emperor cultivation warriors. Xiao Yan frowned slightly. He did not say anything, but his sword-like eyes continued to stare at the Spirit King in the sky. The Spirit King suddenly moved at this moment. Both of his arms were lifted, and the surrounding origin cheese whizzed over. It was as if he was the king of the world, and all the origin cheese had submitted to him. Xiaoao, let's join hands. Do you dare to fight me? Xiao Yan inhaled a deep breath of air when he saw the action of the Spirit King. With a deep breath, his blood started boiling as he suddenly said. The Xiaoao was startled. A moment later, the former's excited voice sounded in Xiao Yan's mind. All right. Rumble. The clouds in the sky pressed down. The entire forest became dark because of this. The Spirit King stood in midair, waving his arms. The majestic origin chi followed behind him. An Emperor cultivation expert, his control over the origin monarch chi had reached an even more exquisite level. The origin monarch crystal in his body had been further opened up. The origin chi chains were much stronger than before. The number of origin chis in his body. At the same time, the number of origin chis within his body had also increased by 100. The power also increased by a large margin. As for Emperor cultivation warriors, although they were not giants in a large world, they were still considered mighty beings. With just a wave of their hands, the origin chi was attached to them, causing the origin chi to be used by them. The monarch skill in their hands was further strengthened. Why aren't you coming out yet? Then we'll destroy this forest. S in the sky rushed towards him like whirlpools. In that instant, they had already formed a gigantic tornado. The might of an Emperor cultivation warrior's fury could already cause mountains to collapse and destroy cities and earth. Just as the Spirit King was about to wave his hand, his brows suddenly twitched. His eyes looked into the distance like a bolt of lightning. A figure soared into the sky and rushed towards him. Another incarnation. The surrounding origin chis were all his senses. The Spirit King frowned. When he sensed the true identity of the figure in the distance, he immediately smiled disdainfully. Just as he was about to make a move, he once again let out a cold snort. A free hand suddenly swept across his body as several origin chi pillars shot out. A few dozen miles of space flashed by, and accurately hit a few figures that appeared in different directions at the same time. Pooh! 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 Following the sound of a few auras fluctuating, these figures transformed into core chi and dissipated. The Spirit King's expression did not change. The tornado vortex in his hand rumbled. Just as it was about to smash into the forest below, a whistling sound suddenly sounded from behind him. In an instant, a huge white tiger appeared in the air. It roared and attacked the Spirit King. Within the white tiger, Xiao Yan's expression was solemn. The clothes on his chest. Hong Long, 0 inches you're courting death. A trace of joy flashed across the Spirit King's eyes when he saw Xiao Yan charging at him. After that, he became furious. His blood and chi surged. Was his deterrent force already so weak? A puny monarch emperor actually wanted to challenge him? Crack! Spirit King furiously shouted. The tornado in his hand was sent flying towards the white tiger. The sound of the wind was howling. There was a slight hissing sound in the air. Numerous black cracks flashed and disappeared, revealing a frightening aura. Roar! The white tiger roared furiously towards the sky. Its huge body was blocked by the tornado and could no longer move forward. Xiao Yan struggled to hold on in the body of the white tiger. The flames around his body surged wildly, but he was still knocked back by the attack. Your monarch flame and the secret arts that can increase your strength, give them all to King. The Spirit King couldn't stop laughing. He stretched out his 5 fingers and was about to attack Xiao Yan, who was inside the white tiger's body. Swoosh! Swoosh! Just as the Spirit King was about to attack, a purple golden flame soared into the sky from afar. In a trance, it seemed to have heard a dragon's roar. In the next moment, the purple golden flame had already arrived with a roar. Within the flames, a blurry figure stretched out his fist. There was an obscure Dao pattern on his fist. It was like a stone tablet that blotted out the sky as it smashed down towards the Spirit King. Dragon tablet hand. The Xiao Ao suddenly opened its 5 fingers. It seemed to be holding a huge ancient seal that shook the surroundings. It smashed apart the heavens and earth and directly smashed towards the Spirit King's body. Damn brat! The Spirit King's attention was being held back by Xiao Yan. He did not have much strength to retaliate against the sudden attack of the Xiao Ao. Immediately, he let out a furious roar. A sound wave surged out and spread out along the surrounding majestic origin cheese. It was like a death chant, causing the space to tremble slightly, and the sound of piercing explosions could be heard. Although the demonic sound technique only had the power of a middle-grade monarch spell, it had the effect of shattering mountains and rivers when used by an emperor cultivation warrior like the Spirit King. It was enough to cause an ordinary warrior to explode and die. A cold glint flashed across the Xiao Ao's eyes. A layer of purple-colored dragon scales silently surged into his ears, covering both of his ears. In an instant, all sounds in the world were repelled. Swoosh! The demonic sound technique did not have the slightest effect on the Xiao Ao. The latter transformed into a giant tablet with one hand and directly smashed it towards the Spirit King. Following the latter's painful cry, the world seemed to have caved in. Rumble! The vortex tornado, which had lost the control of the Spirit King, began to roar wildly in midair. Xiao Yan, who was the first to receive the attack, was the first to receive a heavy blow. The white tiger was instantly torn into pieces. Xiao Yan was sent flying backwards by the impact of the majestic origin chi. The origin chi wings on his back were no longer under his control as they violently smashed onto the ground. Boom! Boom! Two loud explosions rang out almost at the same time, and more than half of the forest below was destroyed. Two bottomless pits appeared on the ground. Sand filled the sky, and huge trees were flying everywhere. This guy's hands are numb. The Xiao Ao stood in midair, looking at the huge pit created by the Spirit King. It shook its small hand and muttered. Boom! Before it finished speaking, a huge crater underneath suddenly exploded. As the huge rock was sent flying, the Spirit King soared into the sky. Its remaining eyes were filled with endless fury. It looked at the Xiao Ao with a monstrous hatred, wanting nothing more than to devour it. It's not that scary. At least, it has suffered some injuries. The Xiao Ao's expression was solemn. It looked at the Spirit King and suddenly said with a mocking smile. At this moment, the Spirit King's clothes had been torn apart. On his neck, there were a few cuts on his neck. The most obvious part was that his back had been directly hit by the Xiao Ao's dragon tablet hand. At this moment, fresh blood was flowing out. King is going to tear you apart. The Spirit King roared furiously. The origin cheese all over his body boiled. They carried a frightening pressure as they surged over. His body moved violently as he rushed towards the Xiao Ao. He was as fast as lightning as he was about to grab the latter's neck. Kai! The Xiao Ao barely managed to dodge in the nick of time. However, its shoulder was still grabbed by the spiritual king. Its 5 fingers had almost penetrated the former's shoulder. Boom! The Spirit King violently smashed the Xiao Ao onto the ground. Fury surged in the Spirit King's eyes. He suddenly took a step into the air and the origin chi in his palm roared. It turned into a sharp blade and rushed towards the falling Xiao Ao. The sharp blade was about to pierce through the latter's chest. White tiger spirit sealing flash. Just as the Xiao Ao was about to fall to the ground, suddenly, a loud shout resounded across the sky. Xiao Yan suddenly rushed out from the ground. It was as if there was a white tiger wrapped around his right fist. Following the roar of a tiger, he charged towards the Spirit King. Due to the angle of the attack, the Spirit King sensed Xiao Yan's aura. Just as the latter charged out of the ground, a tiger's roar shook the valley, scattering the layers of dense clouds in the sky. In an instant, his iron fist violently struck the Spirit King's abdomen. Sky Spill Fist. The instant the fist struck the Spirit King's abdomen, Xiao Yan once again furiously cried out. His 5 fingers were once again tightly clenched. As the origin chi surged, a layer of violent attack was unleashed. A meteorite rumbled as it violently smashed onto the Spirit King's abdomen. Puff! The Spirit King suffered the full force of Xiao Yan's attack, and the full force of his attack caused the Spirit King to clench his fist tightly. It couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Its charging body stopped instantly and was sent flying away by Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan's expression was cold as he clenched his teeth. He had used almost all of his strength in this attack. When he was sent flying to the ground by the tornado vortex, he did not immediately come out. Instead, he observed the every movement of the Spirit King. There was a powerful soul force within it. He could clearly see all of the movements of the Spirit King. Taking advantage of the time when the Spirit King was chasing after the Xiao, he suddenly rushed out and delivered a fatal blow. Hoo! He sent the Spirit King flying with a single strike. Xiao Yan's forehead was covered with sweat, and he couldn't help but gasp for breath. Although the use of the secret technique had greatly increased his strength, it had also brought about disastrous consequences. After such a long period of time, Xiao Yan's body had become burning hot, and the circulation of the origin qi had become chaotic. As for the pain in his body, there was no need to mention it. The Xiao, which had just left, also stabilized its body. Xiao Yan hurriedly flew over when he saw this. He glanced at the injury on the Xiao's shoulder. Purple gold blood continuously flowed out, and there were 5 obvious finger marks on it. I'm fine. That fellow has suffered such a serious injury. His aura has not diminished in the slightest. An emperor cultivation expert is really frightening. The Xiao chuckled and waved his hand. After that, he looked at a mountain range in the distance. The Spirit King was sent flying by Xiao Yan, almost piercing through the mountain range. That's of course. The gap between Emperor Cultivation and Monarch Emperor is like a dividing line. Xiao Yan nodded his head when he heard this. He retracted his gaze from Xiao's wound and said with a heavy gaze, "We can't drag this on any longer. The Heavenly Monarch fire-burning body has been used for too long, and my body won't be able to hold on much longer." He glanced at the Xiao. Xiao Yan wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said in a low voice, "All right, I'll go and stall him." The Xiao nodded solemnly. With a flip of its hand, the dragon prideful sword appeared in its hand. The high-grade spirit weapon that Yin Juxuan had taken from him had been strengthened by the Xiao, and had now reached the level of a heaven-grade weapon. It was even more powerful. "Be careful," Xiao Yan softly instructed. After musing for a moment, he took out an incarnation pill and stuffed it into the Xiao. After which, he consumed a few of them. In an instant, 9 incarnations floated up from beside him. These incarnations should be able to drag it out a few times. Xiao Yan inhaled a deep breath of air. His body flashed and he had already left this place. Currently, the origin qi within his body was extremely wild and violent. If he were to use it to activate the Buddha Fury Fire Lotus, all his previous efforts would be in vain. Hence, he could only hide far away from this place. I'm going to kill all of you." In just a few breaths of time after Xiao Yan left, a mountain range in the distance exploded with a loud bang. As the huge rock was sent flying, the robust body of the Spirit King rushed out explosively. At the same time, a furious voice resounded across the sky. The strength of an Emperor Cultivation warrior had completely erupted. In an instant, the heaven and earth origin qi shook, and large tracts of the forest below were turned into ashes at this moment. One kakakaka. As the spiritual king was completely enraged, the wind and clouds in this area suddenly changed. Like a tornado, it destroyed everything within a radius of dozens of miles. The fury of an Emperor Cultivation warrior was enough to tear apart anything that stood in his way. This guy. The smile on the Xiao's face had disappeared, and it was replaced by a solemn expression. The strength of a Spirit King was much stronger than Yin Juxuan's. Even if he could win, the price he would have to pay must be extremely painful. Taking a deep breath, the imperious dragon sword in the Xiao's hand tightened. With a whistle, it rushed towards the Spirit King. The latter's aura had already soared to its peak. If he did not suppress it any longer, the strength that he had displayed was definitely not something that he could deal with. Die. Seeing the Xiao rushing towards him, a murderous look flashed across the Spirit King's eyes. With a furious roar, he suddenly opened his 5 fingers and a majestic origin qi pillar shot out diagonally. It was as if it had pierced through the space, causing the sound of fluttering wind to be heard. The Xiao gritted its teeth. The clothes on its arms were all torn apart. Its exposed arms were covered with dense purple dragon scales. It tightly gripped the oolong mace and smashed it towards the origin qi pillar that was flying towards it. Clang! It was as if it had struck a piece of metal. This heavy blow, which was sufficient to cause the air to hiss, merely caused the origin qi pillar to tremble slightly. In the next moment, it was as though the mountains and seas had been overturned as it once again smashed towards the Xiao. Damn it! A fury flashed across the Xiao's eyes when it saw this. With a flip of its wrist, the Dragon Prideful Sword was withdrawn. Although the Dragon Prideful Sword was far superior to high-tier spirit weapons of the same tier, it was ultimately unable to match a heavenly weapon. With the strength of an Emperor cultivation expert's body, ordinary spirit weapons would not be able to cause much damage to him. Not to mention the Spirit King, who had displayed all of his strength at this moment. Dragon Tablet Hand. At the same time that the imperious dragon sword was put away, the Xiaoaos around the Xiaoao whistled. In an instant, the purple gold light almost enveloped the Xiaoao. A stone tablet that seemed to be able to suppress the ages emerged from the light. It carried an irresistible force as it ruthlessly smashed into the surging origin cheese. Insignificant skill, the Spirit King muttered softly to himself. The corner of his mouth curled up in disdain. This origin chi pillar, it was just a casual move of his. Most of its power was enough to make this brat in front of him use all of his strength to deal with it. No one could imagine the true strength of an Emperor cultivation warrior. Spirit Demon Arm. The Spirit King didn't even look at the huge golden monument in the distance. He shouted and his right arm trembled. Then, it suddenly stretched out in a strange way. In an instant, it was a few miles long. The 5 fingers of the Spirit King were sharp. Dazzling origin cheese were flowing in all directions, as if they were going to pierce through the space. Kai, his extended right arm had already charged into the purple gold light amid the electric sparks and fire rocks. He suddenly clenched his hand and grabbed the Xiaoao within it. Ugh! Before the Spirit King could make a move, the Xiaoao in his hand suddenly trembled. Immediately, it transformed into a pill chi and dissipated. The Xiaoao within the purple gold light had already disappeared. Bastard! It's another body transformation pill. The Spirit King's eyes turned cold. He suddenly pulled his hand out from the purple gold light. At the same time, the purple gold ancient tablet had already scattered the majestic origin chi pillar. It carried a powerful force as it smashed towards the former. Crack! The Spirit King did not say anything. He suddenly extended his arm. His 5 fingers moved gently and easily shattered the purple gold ancient tablet. It turned into an origin chi that disappeared into the sky and earth. Let's see if you can hide there. The Spirit King's face was covered in ice. He coldly looked downwards. A powerful origin chi surged within his palms. Like a chain, he suddenly swung downwards. Rumble! The origin chi chain struck the ground. In an instant, rock fragments surged. 200 jong-long cracks instantly appeared. Wherever the cracks passed, there was no trace of life. Everything in the surrounding sky was sensed by the Spirit King. It was the place where the Xiaoao could hide. In his opinion, there was only the forest below. Hoo! Hoo! The origin chi chains struck the air and emitted a frightening sound. When the dense forest below came into contact with the origin chi chains, it quietly turned into flying dust, revealing a large stretch of red land. Swoosh! Just as the origin chi chains were about to swing down, a figure suddenly rushed out from below and flew into the distance. The Spirit King raised his eyelids, but his expression didn't change at all. It was another incarnation formed by the incarnation of an incarnation pill. It could fool a monarch emperor, but it was insignificant to him. Why does this old man have such sensitive senses? Behind a mountain rock below, the Xiaoao gritted its teeth and looked at the Spirit King in the sky. The origin chi chain in the latter's hand whistled down and hit the ground hard. It was only 1,000 feet away from where he was. He turned around and looked into the distance. By relying on the connection between his blood and Xiaoyan, he could clearly sense the location of the latter. At the same time, he could also feel a trace of a destructive aura spreading in the air. Presumably, the spiritual king could also sense it. The Xiaoao clenched its teeth and let out an angry cry. All the Xiaoyan's incarnations, who were hiding in the forest, followed the order and leapt up. They rushed towards the Spirit King to distract the latter's attention. The Xiaoao also swallowed all of the transformation pills. In an instant, 9 Xiaoao appeared beside him at the same time. Swoosh! Suddenly, several human figures flew out from the forest below. The Spirit King looked over and saw that they were all in Xiaoyan's appearance. However, he did not know that they were real people. His gloomy eyes quickly swept across the numerous Xiaoyan who had appeared in the sky. The Spirit King let out a cold snort and sent out a sound wave. These figures instantly turned into core chi and dispersed. The moment all the human figures disappeared, the Spirit King suddenly frowned as if it had sensed something. It raised its head and looked into the distance. Before it could react, a furious shout was heard from behind. 10 human figures and 10 Xiao-Ao rushed towards the former at the same time. What a reckless move! The Spirit King laughed in extreme anger. He temporarily retracted his doubtful gaze. He could feel that, among the 10 people, there was the true body of the Xiao-Ao. Boom! The origin chi chain in his hand was swung horizontally. The air buzzed. At a strange angle, it pierced through the human figures like a snake. The Xiao-Ao that was hit did not make a sound, indicating that it had turned into core chi. When it struck the 6th Xiao-Ao, the latter's body suddenly turned and forcefully dodged the fierce attack. "I've found you," the Spirit King laughed softly. He suddenly waved his remaining hand. The origin chi chain shot out like lightning and smashed onto the back of the Xiao-Ao. The latter's face turned white in an instant, and a mouthful of purple gold blood could not help but spurt out. Hoo-la-la! The origin chi chains tightly wrapped around the Xiao-Ao. The Spirit King laughed loudly and much of his fury dissipated. He mocked, "Where is Xiaoyan? Did he leave you behind and run away?" The eyes of the Xiao-Ao flickered with a purple-golden light. A deep roar was heard from its throat. The chain that was wrapped around the Xiao-Ao seemed to have collapsed. HMPH. The Spirit King laughed disdainfully. He exerted even more strength with his 5 fingers. The origin chi within his body whistled out. A layer of golden light quietly spread across the origin chi chains in his hands, trapping the Xiao-Ao even more firmly. I would like to see where he can run to. Below the Emperor cultivation, ants are no match for him. Seeing the struggling expression of the Xiao-Ao, the Spirit King said. This was the true strength of an Emperor cultivation. When it erupted, a monarch emperor warrior would never be able to fight it. He. The Xiao-Ao suddenly laughed and looked into the distance. A hint of joy could be seen on its face. What? Upon seeing the expression on the Xiao-Ao, the Spirit King's expression changed drastically. Only now did he recall the doubts he had earlier. He looked into the distance and saw a black-robed young man standing in the sky. He was breathing heavily. In his palm, an exquisite 3-colored fire lotus was rotating slowly. At the same time, a destructive aura that caused him to tremble slowly spread out and covered the entire sky.